meant to be by those who came before us. Is remembering. So today we will do a bit of remembering concerning the implementation of the Constitution. And I will start by invoking one of our elders who left us, who went ahead of us. He was called the late Professor Okoth Ogendo. And in many of the beautiful things he had said, and important things he has said, he said, one of the challenges of Africa and many other countries that share a history and a past similar to Africa is having constitutions without constitutionalism. I invoke an elder. So he said, one of the challenges we have is having constitutions without constitutionalism. So what is constitutionalism? Kwa Kiswahili tunasema kuna katiba na kuna ukatiba. Upo? Upo? Useme nipo. Kuna tofauti baina ya kuwa na katiba na ukatiba. Sasa ukatiba ni nini? What is constitutionalism? Yote hayo lakini zaidi ni kujenga msingi wa utamaduni wa kuheshimu ukatiba. To respect, to protect, to implement, to promote, living within the bounds of the Constitution, but even more importantly, within the vision, values, and principles of the Constitution. So can I start naming, I don't like dropping names, but can I start by naming some of the challenges we had in the implementation of the Constitution? And I'm happy Dr. Oyaya is here. Dr. Oyaya and a colleague of his have written a beautiful constitutional book that traces the history of making of constitutions in Kenya. So let me start by saying that the beginning point of the many crises that we face is a crisis of legitimacy. The crisis of legitimacy. Because Kenya was born out of illegitimacy. Kenya was born as an idea out of an illegitimate thinking, illegitimate conceptualization, and illegitimate implementation of that idea. And in Kenya, keeping many other variations, the original problem is settler colonialism. Settler colonialism. What is the difference between other types of colonialism and settler colonialism? In simple terms, settler colonialism is when wakoloni wanavamia nchi yenu wakipanga kutoondoka milele. They intend not to leave. They intend to stay there forever. Like USA, like New Zealand, like Australia, like, you know, the ones neighboring Canada, the original people there. It's one of the indigenous people. Call it Panata. Not Canada, Panata. So they come, but they have no intention of leaving. They only leave after an armed struggle. Settler colonialism is only dealt with armed struggle. How many of us don't know there was an armed struggle in Kenya? But when they leave you with a hot potato. It is called the land problem. There is only one envisaged settler colonialism that did not have the land question or the land problem. Do you know which one is that? Can somebody help me? It's Algeria. Algeria. You see, Tanzania was not a settler colony. Yeah? It was not a settler colony at any point. Huh? Now you're asking me why, and tunatoka kwa mambo ya Kenya. Unataka tuache story ya Kenya. Yeah? And there's a reason why that happened in Algeria. Because wale walikuwa wanaramba ya wazungu. You know, these days you see it. Yeah, you don't say the other parts. Eh? Yeah? And you know, Mzee Kenyatta's speeches used to be, mwana ya mama yao. Watu wa kuramba ya wazungu. Yeah? The reason why is the collaborators there walishika mzungu wakasema huwezi kuondoka ukatuacha hapa. All the collaborators left with the French. So they could bring in land reform without any problem. There is a reason why I'm starting on land. Because that is where most of our problems come from. So as you keep on listening to me, you realize that I have a different approach to the approach that has been taken by the team and the paper that they have written. And I'll tell you what's the difference. The difference is this. I say, and I argue, and I'm willing to debate that the national interest is already defined. Not one. National interests are already defined. I argue, secondly, that you cannot have a national interest outside the Constitution. The tableau, the template, the foundational framework for what is national interest is the Constitution. And I'll demonstrate it if I have enough time. But now, let me come to the question. What has been the main challenge of implementing the Constitution? First, the first challenge, and I'm linking this to national interest, the first challenge is that this is a value, principles, design constitutional framework. That is its first challenge. What I may call the constitutional imperative or preposition. That this constitution is based on values, principles, and its design and architecture is based on these values and principles. Secondly, because of this, partly this, what you may call the constitutional imperative, is that it is a transformative constitution. Now, if you use the jurisprudence or the culture of interpreting constitutions that has emerged mainly from South Africa, and we benefited a great deal from their South African thinking, who benefited a great deal from our history as well. Right? That what is a transformative constitution? In simple terms, because we are not going to go technical too much, unless you ask us to be technical, a transformative constitution totally rejects past existing oppressive structures. It totally rejects. Says the past must be deconstructed. And everything wrong, atrocious in that past, we must seek to come to terms with it. Secondly, a transformative constitution addresses present and existing struggles. And thirdly, and most important, a transformative constitution envisions a just future and seeks to build structures that will promote justice. Nipigwe teke, walete tiagas, wapige risasi, ufungwe jela. In other words, a transformative constitution says we will not go back to Misri. Na tutarudi nyuma. Tunaenda mbele. Si unajua? Wewe baki nyuma, si tuenda na haki. Mwenyekiti wa jumuiya wana vijiji ana smile kabisa. Usituone wazee, lakini tumekuwa kwenye mahandaki. So, why is this background important? It's important because it was envisaged that we needed to plan for the implementation of this constitution because the past, the status quo, those who benefited from crimes in the past, cannot let go just like that. So we need to plan for it. First mistake, Bomas of Kenya, including my brother Churchill, responsible for this sin, among others, including myself. My sister Rose will remember there were two factions in CKRC. Just like there are two factions in ODM. It's Jans Uchokozi. Transition mercenaries and progressive forces. So commissioners needed to distribute among the two groups. By the time we came to the committee thinking about transition, the progressive commissioners had run out. And there were two transactionalist commissioners remaining, and you know